I'm gonna be really honest. The third flower is always the trickiest flower. And the thing is, when myself, Emma, started to think about what flowers we wanted to have in our painting, the difference is that because right now, both Emma and myself are figuring out flowers that are more individual on its own. Now, when I was deciding on the flowers for the other days, red, blue, and yellow, I actually specifically started to think about shape, about color, and all of that coming together to create a composition. So when the third flower was added in, one of the things that I realized was that I had picked out too many flowers that were superstars. And what I meant by that was that these flowers were almost competing against each other. The magnolia, the enchinea, and now the anemone, these are literally flowers that were competing against one another because they all have very unique features, and at the same time, I don't want the flower painting to be too overcrowded as well. I want you to watch me show you my start to finish process as I compose this painting, and always that third flower is the trickiest. At the same time, tune into the conversations that Emma and I had because we had so much fun. It's really nice to get to sit down and chat with a fellow artist, and I am so happy that the internet actually connected us together. And as I said, when I started watercolor, Emma for me was a space which I would go as well as a resource to learn about all things watercolor. And what I love about the work that she has done is that I can see that over time her content keeps evolving and growing together with the members within her community. So I can't wait for you to dive in together with me and Emma as we paint the anemones. Let's dive in. If you're new to my channel, my name is Jillian. I'm a psychologist turned full-time watercolor artist, and I'm here to show you how to embrace the mess and magic of watercolor. Let's take a look at the supplies that I'll be using during our painting. Now in this video, we're going to be having a conversation with Emma, and just to give you a sense of when that conversation is popping up during the tutorial, you will hear an instrument. So this gives you enough time to transit your brain between the conversation and the learning process.
The anemones,
The
right?
last one is the anemones. Let's go.
I like
They're
those.
big and fluffy.
Yeah. Wait, what page was it on?
It's 290.
290. Oh, there they are. Beautiful. These are some. Okay, now I'm going to use a different pink for this one, I think. I might even bust out my other palette because this is too similar.
Look at here. Now I'm like thinking, where do I place it? Because it's such a big flower. Welcome back to another video. Now these videos were so fun to make because I get to rehear all of the different conversations. So we're gonna do the anemone, and right now I'm just thinking about where exactly I should place it. I'm going to be using my 1/2-inch flat brush just to wriggle and pull out that shape of the anemone. Now the anemone has lots of nice fluffy petals, so you really want to kind of almost make a blob-like shape, and your outside shape of the flower should have various edges as well. So use your brush to wriggle it around so that you've got some of these uneven edges. What I'm doing is, after I've created that outside shape, I started to go in with my small round brush and charged in some pigment. So charging is done when your paper is still wet and you've got pigment on your brush, and when you go in, you're gonna get some nice soft bleeds. So I'm just putting in areas that are close to the center of the flower, where I want to capture some of those areas that are slightly darker or that there are folds. Now, there's no real formula as to where you should drop the darker areas. Just make sure that you take a look at the reference photo and pay attention to the edges and the centers, because usually those are the points that you can get your shadows appearing. Start on the second one. So I'm doing a similar really light wash wash of that anemone floral shape. And I want to do an upward facing one just because the magnolias are upward facing. So I want to do something similar. And I'm painting behind the magnolia. So keeping in mind that because I'm painting the magnolia, I'm going to have to create color that is a lot darker in saturation so that there's a contrast between the magnolia and the anemone. Otherwise, the viewer's going to see both flowers as one. So I'm starting off painting with the edges. I'm charging in and adding paint to the wet surface. So this gives me a nice soft blurred look. At the same time, I am also paying attention to where my magnolia is and going as close to it as possible and trying not to overlap it because I don't want the paint from the anemone to be overlapping my magnolia.
So
Okay,
I
let's
filmed with
see.
my phone for the first how many years? I only got actual cameras, like I want to say a year ago,
Oh yeah?
2 years ago. Like I filmed with my phone forever.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you see, I think you don't need. There's so many people that are just doing it on their phone. Like you can, the
Yeah.
phone is good enough these days. Like
Yeah, for
they
sure.
are, yeah. Like you can get super good quality with the
Hmm.
phone. You can get away with you know, just a basic video and it's good
Yep.
enough. And I mean, why not, right?
Yep.
My paper is dry, so I'm going in with another layer, and this time I'm trying to create a lot more contrast, so I'm darkening it. And what I'm doing is that I've actually added some red to my pink, so you can see that there's a lot more contrast right now, and in fact, it looks a lot darker in saturation. Now, when you are painting wet in dry, make sure that your layers underneath are completely dry because if you don't, then there's a possibility of creating blooms and backwash by accident, especially if your paper is still damp. So make sure you're eyeballing your paper. I'm struggling with my composition right now because I feel like my magnolias took center stage. So it's like I need to find a space for my anemone to fight with the rest of it.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm gonna, yeah, and it's hard because I'm trying to squeeze all three in, but I'm
Hmm.
gonna just force it in the background somewhere.
You got this.
And it's
Yeah.
and it's gonna be nice and red, like dark. Like it's gonna,
Nice.
yeah, it's because everything is gonna be very washed out if I have everything very pinky. So we'll see, we'll
Hmm.
figure it out. Let's see. I've started to add a bit of greenery to the painting because I find that I started to feel lost in the sea of pink. The green really creates a contrast between the flowers, and I find that when I started to do that, it gave my painting a lot more direction because before that, all I saw was just really a lot of pink. You can see that adding those greens just around the edges of some of these flowers by doing negative painting has actually created some depth where it appears as though the flowers are literally sitting on top of the leaves. Yeah, I'm getting a bit lost with my anemone, but
Let me see it.
yeah, we will I will I think I'm lost because like I said, it's just a sea of pink in my painting. Mm. The greens that I'm using to add the greenery is a mixture of sap green mixed with a little bit of permanent rose. I'm also using some chrome oxide, and the variation of greens really bring out the stems a lot more. You can see that the greens that I've used with the coneflower are a lot yellower and warmer as compared to the other greens. Now I've started to add the centers of the flowers, and these are actually made out of some complementary pairs. So what I've done is I've actually mixed my
orange and my blues together to create this really, really kind of almost dark grayish blue. And I find that when you mix your complementary pairs, you can get so many beautiful neutral grays, and you never know what kind of mixtures that come up with your neutral pairs. And what I mean by neutral pairs is understanding what exactly your color set are complementary to each other. So when you mix them, you tend to get what we call mud, but I find that you can create lots of beautiful grays, and these colors are so important to a painting as well because they could be used for shadows and they could create more contrast in the rest of your painting. Now, I'm also going in to darken some of those shadows, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to kind of pull out the petals by doing a little bit more negative painting. And at this stage, I am trying to just define that there are certain parts where I want lighter petals to show, and this is where I start to create some of those curves. If I'm not responding, I'm like trying to figure out my anatomy. At this stage, I had a light bulb moment because I discovered how mixing in some of my mineral violet together with my permanent rose gave me this very beautiful plum shade pink. And I'm just adding it and dabbing it into certain areas and calling this my dark tone in my painting. So when I'm painting, I often have three different tones. You have your light tone, your mid tone, and your dark tone. So this creates a little bit more cohesiveness, especially when you're trying to create more depth in your painting. Now I'm also going around adding in darker colors and values when it comes to my magnolia because I noticed that my magnolia is starting to blend into my anemone, and that's not what I want. I want to make sure that even though the two of them are sitting next to each other, there's still that separation. So I have to decide which one I want to pull to the front and which one to the back. So the one in the front is usually the one that has the most light. So this is where it's going to be the lighter one, and that's going to be my magnolia, while my anemone is going to be a lot darker in color because it's in the background and it's in the shade. I am also going in and adding in more contrast to my greens. Take your time through this process because whenever you're painting a painting, you might not necessarily be finishing up one flower at a time, but rather you might be going in and noticing certain spots and areas start to change and shift as your painting starts to dry. I'm glazing over some veins on my magnolia just to create a little bit more depth and detail to it.
Like I
Yeah.
still keep all my old sketchbooks from when I started. And I'm like showing people, I'm like, look, you can literally rub this paint off with your finger because it is such horrible paint. That's what I used. Like you
Yeah,
don't need
yeah.
the best quality stuff to start. And
No, you
my
don't.
flowers and everything were just awful.
Yeah.
But
We all have to start somewhere, right? And
yeah.
it's so good to be able to see, as you said.
Hmm. Progress is so important
It
just to kind of
is.
visualize and just when you're especially when you're feeling down and you're just like, what
Yeah.
am I doing? You're like, oh no, look where you started. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Just makes you feel a little bit better.
definitely, definitely. I love it. As you're building up the layers and the shadows, don't forget to keep the light. So sometimes as we're adding in darker and darker color values, there's a tendency that we end up adding so much that we forget to keep the white spaces. The white spaces are as important in a painting because that's going to be what's made up of your light. Now, I love to add this dark plum shade, and I'm actually doing dry brush strokes. I find that the dry brush strokes add some texture to the anemone, because if you look at the reference photo, you can see that it's almost like the flower petals are hand painted, and I'm trying to create some of that as well. Now, I'm starting to darken the top anemone because, as I said, I really want to separate the magnolia from the anemone, and this is where I see that I have to make sure that the anemone gets a little darker in color value so that there's going to be that separation. Right here, I'm using my small size 6 round brush from Princeton Heritage, and the paint consistency on my brush is pretty thick. So I don't have that much water on my brush, and it's on purpose because I'm trying to create dry brush strokes.
And so I've been doing voiceovers because I'm so tired of talking during paintings.
Yeah.
And like I will be talking and my husband will be in the background hearing exactly everything that I'm saying. And
Yeah.
he's gonna be and he's like sometimes he will make some comments like do you want to like slow down and like so he makes me self-conscious like
Oh.
had enough like let me leave me alone.
Here I felt it would be better to add yet another coneflower. Now I know we did the coneflower on day 11. However, I find that because that space was empty and I did not want the magnolia to look like it was just facing upwards and really lonely, I decided to add one more coneflower there just to keep it company and also to create a little bit more cohesiveness in this composition. I started with a light layer of the same pink that I used with the last coneflower, and then I'm slowly adding in darker tones and layers. Now, this is a side facing coneflower, so I'm keeping in mind that the petals might overlap one another, especially in the portion that is closer to me. So you can see those petals there look rather flat while the rest look very long and it's reaching out. And that's the intention of the perspective that I'm trying to show the viewer. Next, I'm going in to darken the stamen. So the last time when we did the cornflower, we did an underpainting of green first, and then I did an additional layer where I added in that brown.
I found the missing ingredient in my painting,
What
and
was
it
it?
is green. Like I have
Oh.
too much pink in my everywhere.
Uh,
I need to add some greens, like the
yeah, because some of
leaves
the
and
don't,
the
yeah, they don't show as many leaves. So you gotta just add them in there.
yeah, especially the magnolias, like they had no leaves
Yeah.
practically. So okay,
I
great.
feel like
Now
I
I've
should have put my magnolias in the middle because there's not much greenery and then there's more greenery on the other two. But
there's a lot more greenery on the at least on this anemone.
yeah.
So it's good. Yay. I was like everything's so pink. I'm just painting this pink thing.
I like
Yeah.
it though. This is fun. And it's something like, I mean, I've done the flower color guide a couple times, but I haven't done like 3 in a row or kind of challenge myself. And I'm following along with your videos too. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's also something I needed for myself because I'm always like trying to come up with content and always trying to think of something. But it's like, no, you know what? I'm going to follow a video for myself and just enjoy it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
just
I
enjoy the
think that's
process of
that's
someone
so
else's
healthy.
instructions.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm tired of
It's
talking to myself all the
healthy.
time,
Exactly what I just
right?
yeah,
Oh,
100%. I'm with
I'm
you.
sick of my own voice.
Emma, for the record, I think that your voice is so nice and calming, especially when I'm listening to your tutorials. Anyway, back to the tutorial. So you can see that I've started to add greens to my painting, and when I did this, it suddenly made all of the magnolias start to pop. And I'm creating a variation of warm and cool greens. And I'm keeping in mind that the greens that are usually further at the back are of cooler by nature. So you want to have a little bit more of the blues in those greens. I'm using my small size 6 round brush to paint this because I'm going in between those petals and I really don't want any green to go into my flowers. Now, at this stage, my flowers are all completely dry, which is where you see that my leaf greens are not going to blend into my flowers at all. These are important things for you to take note of because if parts of your flowers are still wet, this is going to result in blending and mixing. And every time you are painting, always ask yourself what kind of effects you want. Because if you want blending, if you want things to move around, then of course keep your paper wet. But if you don't, then you need to have that patience to not paint over that area while it is still wet so that you get the hard lines and the definition that you really want.
Oh yeah, there's the ornaments in your background.
Yeah, those are my
They're so
giant
cute.
ornaments. They're huge.
Those are so nice. I love them.
Those I use them for my market because I had a market to sell the ornaments and they
Mhm.
got people's attention. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
are these for sale? I'm like, no, these are for myself.
Yeah. I like those. They look so nice.
Yeah. Yeah, those are my favorite, but they've been hanging by my front door for a long time before I had this room.
Oh yeah.
And it was Christmas for a long time in my front door.
Yeah.
I am exercising my own license to decide the types of leaves that I want to put in right now. And the shapes and all of these are not with reference to any of the reference photos that I see, but rather this is really just my imagination working here. And for the next couple of minutes, I will be having a conversation with Emma. So sit back, relax, and enjoy watching me paint more leaves in this painting. And also, if you've got any comments about this video today, I would love to hear feedback from you so that I get to know how your experience was like.
What's your favorite color in your palette? Like if you had to choose one. Or like a state well, if you change palettes, you always have this color has to come with you. Is there a color that always
Um,
comes with you? Like from a specific brand?
I I've always loved Permanent Rose by
Oh
Winsor
yeah.
Newton. That's
Mm-hmm.
always been my go-to pink, but I don't know. I feel like it's
Okay.
changing now. Like I've started using um the Paul Rubens palette that I got recently a lot more. I find the pink in there is pretty comparable. And
Yeah.
then like right now I just changed my palette to some of the homemade watercolors that I got recently or handmade
Yes, I
watercolors from
saw. Yeah.
uh the ones
Those
from
look
India.
amazing as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So the ones from India, they have this like super bright pink that's just like an opera rose. So that's what I'm using for this. Because I'm like, my
Okay.
Winsor Newton palette doesn't have the opera rose anymore. I ran out like a long time ago. And it's not one of my favorite colors to use, but I figure for this, it was going to be good. But I
Yeah.
don't know. I love a good pink, which is so funny because like as a kid, I was such a tomboy and I hated anything that was pink.
Oh my
Hated pink.
gosh,
I was
me
like, dude,
too.
I
Me
hated pink. But now
too.
with
I didn't
flowers, I'm
like
like,
pink too.
hated it.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
oh, I
The
am not a
irony of
girly
it.
girl.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't
And
like pink.
yeah,
Pink is lame. But
I'm
now I'm
exactly the
like,
same.
pink flowers. I love pink flowers now.
Yeah, yeah. I'm exactly the same. 100%. I
Yeah.
I didn't like pink too, so I told people my favorite color was blue. Just to
Yeah,
go
mine.
against the norm. Like
Yeah,
no,
that
I'm
was
a
my
girl,
favorite
I
color.
like blue. Yeah.
Yeah, that was always my favorite color as a kid. And then, but it's funny, now it's green. So any kind of greens, like olive green, I think is my favorite.
Oh, yeah. Greens are
Love a
nice.
good olive green.
Yeah.
It like
Yeah.
any palette that I have has to have good greens to me.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
a must.
Yeah.
It doesn't have good
It's
green. Like
true.
I hate the artificial looking ones. Or I don't
Yes.
hate them, but I always mute
Like
them so they don't look.
yeah. Like I could never make sap green work in my
Yeah,
palette somehow.
I always find I just end up mixing it. It's a
Yeah,
good for
exactly.
like mixing other greens. Like I'll add a bit of like burnt umber or orange and then I'll get like more of an olivey green. But then I just bought olive green because I was like, I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm done
yeah,
with this.
exactly. I am with you. I mean, set green for a long time because when I started watercolor, you get those sets that are well, it's already mixed for, I mean, you've got all the colors in the box, and I just didn't
Mhm.
want to have that decision making where I didn't know what colors I was going to choose and blah blah blah. So I just got
Yeah.
whatever that was available, and they always had set green, and I was like, do people really use this? Like, and I struggled so much because I didn't know how to mute it. Like I was just mixing blues in and, trying to get my eucalyptus color, but it was never
Yep.
working out. Like, because they said like, oh yeah, eucalyptus is like a cool blue, so add some blue in it. But
Mhm.
like, but the secret sauce is actually red.
Yep. Or orange,
And
I find sometimes too. It makes it a little
yeah,
bit lighter.
yeah, or even
Yeah,
pink.
yeah, I use it a lot for
So
mixing. But I think when I started, I used sap green the most, which is so funny. Because now I'm like,
yeah. Now, the portions where I started to add leaves and all of that was really the next day after the session with Emma. And after taking a step back and looking at the painting in general, I felt like something was missing. And this is where I started adding all of these leaves. And I find that when I did that, it really transformed and created that pop in the painting. What I'm trying to say here is that sometimes if a painting doesn't work out, I would encourage you to take a step away from it and come back to it the next day, because you never know what you could discover from just taking a day off from your painting. In a while, you're going to get to see what I managed to come up with while I was painting with Emma, and you can see what a difference and what a transformation some of these leaves really made to that painting.
do you have a favorite painting of yours?
Favorite painting? Oh, I do. I think so. So I've got these I've got this giant frame.
Mhm.
It's a floating frame, and like the nice thing is that like I get to put like
Ooh,
different
the ones that
paintings
you
in
love.
it. Let me
Those
see
are
this
so
one. Wow.
nice.
I love this one.
That's so nice.
It just has flowers like
Yeah.
and like it started off as blobs, and then it was just the highlights and the colors that kind of added to the. Yeah, so I put up paintings that I really want to continue to do in terms of style.
I
In
like
my
that bottom
hobby.
one.
This one.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. That's so
I'm
nice.
gonna I filmed it, so I'm gonna do a YouTube video on this
Oh,
one.
good.
Um, but it's not really a tutorial. It's more like a take you through my process thing. But
Yeah.
and I've already edited it. But like at least you get to hear my thoughts on like why I did certain things. Because I feel like bouquets are so hard to teach
Yeah.
sometimes. Like, like placement and like this is my reference photo, but it looks totally different from my reference photo. So I think
So for
that's the
those ones
Mhm.
like that one you said that you filmed. So do
Yeah.
the one with you talking through your process, but then also
Yeah.
do a time lapse version of that with just music, and then you'll have it.
Yes.
So with YouTube, it's not all about like getting like the watch time. Like I find the more content you put out, sometimes the
Mhm.
better. It just it
Mm.
push like the channel
Like
or
hits.
YouTube, it will push your stuff out if you have more. So anytime you have a
Yeah.
video, like also post like a time lapse, because for the people who
Yeah.
like watching just that, they'll also get that. And then in the beginning or the end of the video, you can just say to watch the full process video, click this link or whatever.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and
Smart.
then
Oh, I love these
you're
hacks.
not wasting like you're just kind of, you can get as much
Yeah.
out there as
Optimizing
you need to.
basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do it.
Awesome. Love it. I love these tips. Thank you. Thank you.
No
Well,
problem.
all right.
That's my
Okay, let's
okay. Let me see
okay.
you first.
Here is my one, and
Ooh,
the
see,
other
I
one
like how
is
you do
here.
that. See, I feel
Like,
like yours is so much like lighter and fluffier, and like the way you just put in like the shadows, it just makes it stand out, but it's so light. That's
Yeah.
what I like about your stuff. See,
Yeah.
mine's
So
just like
yeah.
mine's too dark.
Yeah.
I like yours.
The
That's
pink that
cool.
you chose looks very much like a coral, like some kind
Yeah.
of coral. Yeah. I like that coral
So
color.
different. See, look
Yeah.
how different they are.
So
They both look cool. I
so
like
so
that.
you can see like if I had added more greens, like it would stand out a bit
Yeah.
better. But there's not enough greens. So I might just like randomly put like
Put some
okay,
leaves.
it yeah, just gonna put some leaves just to like bring the whole thing together. Let's
We
do
did it
it.
right on time. That
We
was
did.
awesome. That was
We
so good.
did. It
I
was
think it,
good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank
thank
you.
you. That was so fun.
Um, it was. So I mean, we can brainstorm other ideas and we'll figure
Yeah, for sure.
we can definitely do something together more. I enjoyed
I
this.
want a video where you teach me something.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
How did you find these anemones? Now, they were so fun to do. And as I continued to build up the composition and added more leaves to the painting, I realized that it helped the pink to pop. And this is also because pink and green are such great complementary colors, and they are great complementary pairs. They are sitting opposite each other on the color wheel. Now, I want to let you know that Brush Movement is a membership that I am hosting, which is opening its enrollment for August right now. And I am inviting you to be part of Brush Movement because this is a community where I hold so near and dear, and I'm also giving you so much more than just tutorials. The focus of Brush Movement is really to give you a direction so that you know exactly what steps to take depending on where you are in your journey. I welcome people of all different stages and with a sense of direction on where to go next in your journey. It's so much easier because it takes all that guesswork out. If you want to find out more about brush movement and if it's the right fit for you, don't forget to check out the link in my description, and I cannot wait to welcome you into my membership. And until then, I will see you in the next video.